The most important thing is getting them comfortable with the tool before the project even happens, right? So it's giving them that opportunity to learn the tool. And then as you're doing that, you're observing which students are really kind of taking ownership of this.
Hello there, my name is Monica Burns, and welcome to today's bonus episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. If you're used to joining me on Tuesdays for new episodes, you are in for a treat. This is a special bonus episode of the podcast in partnership with JotForm. Just like on Tuesdays, these bonus episodes are designed to give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. If we mention something you'd like to check out, you'll find the link to it in the show notes. So don't forget to head to my website, easyedtechpodcast.com, for all of the links and resources from today's episode. This episode is part of a special bonus series presented by JotForm. JotForm provides an all-in-one solution to streamline administrative tasks, enhance community engagement, and foster innovation. Using their no-code, drag-and-drop forms and workflows, your teams can securely collect and store data, automate routine tasks, and collaborate on team resources. Educational institutions are also eligible for a 30% discount on JotForm Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. jotform.com/enterprise/education. And a quick note, this episode is part of a special bonus series. You can find the video version exclusively on JotForm's YouTube network. Today's episode is titled Organizing School-Wide Projects with Collaborative Platforms with Kim Marie Kefalas, a bonus episode with JotForm. In today's episode, I'm talking with Kim, who I've known for a bit now. She's a New Jersey technology teacher and a fellow Apple Distinguished Educator. We get into this topic of organizing school-wide projects with collaborative platforms. And Kim shares powerful stories from her work with elementary students and educators, and really talks about how the right tools and strategies can bring an entire school community together. So if you're looking for fresh project ideas and inspiration that can kickstart your own collaborative work this year, this conversation is for you. Let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today about projects and organizing school-wide projects with collaborative platforms. But before we get into all of that, can you share with listeners a little bit about your role in education? What does your day-to-day look like?
So my day-to-day is very interesting. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. So my day-to-day is very different. I work at two schools. I have a little more than 500 students. I work on a 6-day rotation. So I'm 3 days at one school, 3 days at another school. So I have about 40 teachers. I'm responsible for kindergarten through 5th grade. So I do have a large amount of things on my plate, but I also get to see a lot of different perspectives: student perspective, teacher perspective, admin perspective, and parent perspective.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk about this topic today, because when we think about all the things that might happen over the course of a school year, throughout a school, throughout a district, right, throughout lots of different classrooms, you get to see what takes place with students, with teachers, how families respond to different types of activities. And today we're talking about school-wide projects. What type of school-wide projects are you organizing this year?
So I love school-wide projects, first of all, because I feel like it really brings like an equity to the school, and it really brings that cohesiveness that we're kind of all in this. We're not just in our little silos in our classrooms, which is what sometimes teachers feel like. So one of the things that I've started at my one school is an elementary podcast. And this was my dream last year. I said, I think I'm going to try this. And I had a principal that was willing to purchase some of the equipment. So we have an elementary podcast. And we do a lot of segments on the podcast that bring in school-wide projects. So one of the things that we did was Mystery Teacher. So I used an iPad and I used GarageBand and disguised the teacher's voice, asking them questions. So even the kids on the podcast did not know who the mystery teacher was, only I did. So they would listen to it. They would have banter back and forth about who they think it is, talk about the clues, and then the rest of the school all got to vote on who they thought it was. And it was nice because the kids would listen to each other and then, oh, well, it can't be that person because they're not on this floor. Or so it's really nice. So we had a contest and then we picked a winner. So they got like a little stylus or something. So they got a prize. So that was really fun. That was a really, really great opportunity for student voice, the kids to hear each other and be able to communicate and talk in the hallways. Like, it was so nice to hear them switching classes going, who do you think it is? You know, who do you think? And then the parents got involved, which was great because the parents were sending in submissions. So it was really nice. So we did that at one of my schools. Other of my schools, so again, we're elementary. So it's very difficult to get kindergarten, first grade, involved in these things. So what we do is we do a lot of QR codes. QR codes are elementary friendly. We love them. So any kind of project that we're doing, whether it's for a special occasion or a celebratory month, Black History Month or, end of the year, whatever it may be, we do like door decorating contests. The kids all get involved. They create projects, and then there's QR codes on all the doors. So the teachers take time out of their day to bring their classes to the doors and scan the QR codes and then get to really interact with the doors. And then the students get to vote on which door they liked. We give different prizes, right? Most creative. They came up with all their own. They came up with something like prettiest. Whatever they wanted to do, but it's really nice. And then any visitor, so parents, parent-teacher conference, end of the year, any visitor can scan those QR codes and get a little glimpse as to what happens in our school, which is nice because you don't see that on a day-to-day.
No, right. Just that idea that there's this audience that's kind of built in for students when you're doing something that's school-wide, right? There's a larger sense of community. People start to, ask questions or know a little bit more about what's happening on the other side of the building, not even just down the hall. I think that's such a wonderful way to really think about your why for having a school-wide project. So when you think about some of those whys or some of those goals, what is the goal of a collaborative project and what should students experience by the end?
So the goal of the project is really to engage as many participants in the school community as possible, right? We can't see, like I said, you can't see what happens on a daily, right? And as a parent, how many times your kid comes home and say, how was school? Fine. Good. You don't really get, that sense of what's happening. Whereas a school-wide project, they engage with the community. And it also reminds our students that what happens in your individual brick mortar school can also be outside of the building, right? You have different people coming in and they can see things. They get a sense of the work that you've done. You also get to see different perspectives. Even if kids are working on the same project, you're going to think of something that I'm not going to think of. And then they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Or, they really get that sense of a different way of looking at things. And I think that's the why. It's education is not, just a solo, isolated event. And the school-wide events, school-wide projects really highlight that.
That's such a great point about having different classes do the same project and then letting kids see how it was interpreted, right? What it might look like when one class did it versus another, and having those moments like, I didn't think of it that way, or that totally makes sense, or I could do something like that next time. It's such a great way to build a larger perspective on how everyone is different, right? Even if we're working on the same mission, and we can think of just all the ways that connects to, right, our goals for creating lifelong learners, right, or students who are curious, right, about the world. So,
Even our older students, when they go to the kindergarten, you get fifth graders going down to the kindergarten, they think, oh, they can't do it. They can't do this to that. And they're surprised by the perspectives that a kindergartner has.
Right.
So it's not even, different, people and adults and kids. It's all the way through. And that's what we really enjoy.
Yeah, right. Not just the content, right? But even just, right, an older student, right, an upper elementary student being able to experience what a first grader might contribute to a conversation is really special. So when we think about collaboration in a classroom and we think about the different tools that maybe you and I use as adults, as professionals, when we're, collaborating in spaces with colleagues, how do you use collaborative tools with students, particularly, at your level?
So the biggest thing that I find is that you have to spend time understanding the tool, right? So we give students a very clear, definitive parameter of this is the tool, this is how we are going to use it. And kids are by natural curious.
Right. Yeah.
They want to learn. They are not afraid to press any buttons. We as adults don't want to press anything because we're so afraid, right?
Yeah.
Kids are not afraid. They will push, but that's how they learn. The most important thing is getting them comfortable with the tool before the project even happens, right? So it's giving them that opportunity to learn the tool. And then as you're doing that, you're observing which students are really kind of taking ownership of this. And then we make like little name badges and we call them like expert students, right? Expert or seesaw expert or whatever tool you might be using, right? We give them this little expert badge and they get to help the other kids really become familiar with the tool. It also helps the other kids because now you know what's going to happen. They all want an expert badge, right?
Yeah.
So now they're like, okay, well, let me learn this and use this for the function that I'm using it for, right? And so that to me is the most important thing is setting the parameters. This is what we're using this tool for. This is how many times I want you to do, XYZ. I want you to respond to Monica at least one time, or I want you to, write at least 2 sentences. Whatever the parameters are that you're of the project, those have to be set out for the students so that they know exactly what is expected of them. And once they're familiar with the tool, it just becomes a tool just like everything else, just like a paper, pencil, anything else. Now it's their tool of which they're going to use the project.
Yeah, and just creating an environment where students have a chance to play around, try things out, right, as those expectations are layered on, and knowing that it's not, just them, right? There's probably someone at their table or in the row next to them who can help them figure out, right, how to do that thing, right, at what button to press, right? We think about that ask 3 before me in elementary a lot, right? And so it's, is there someone at your table who knows how to save, or is there someone across from you who knows how to copy that element, right? And just building that capacity, I think, is really empowering and so doable at the elementary level, particularly if there's secondary teachers listening. I mean, I've spent time in first and second grade classrooms, pushing in or modeling, right, where, you can have that moment where, a student figures out something and it's like, go tell 3 people what you just figured out and then come back and jump back into your project, because it really does give them a sense of ownership for that activity. It makes them feel like they've figured something out or, solved a problem, if you will, that they can then bring to others. So,
the most not even interrupt you, but the most important word that you said there is tell others in elementary school and probably even in the older grades too. What they want to do is they want to do it for you. So there's a big difference between go tell your 3 friends how you save that file versus go over to their desk and do it for them.
Yeah, right.
And that in the elementary school is something that we have to teach repetitively, because it just builds this, if you don't, it builds I'm just going to ask Monica. Every time I need help, I'm just going to have Monica do it for me. And we are trying to, especially our goal in the elementary school this year is to become independent learners, right? This whole idea of handing it to you, especially little kids. They're so used to doing that, right? You're typing for me, do this for me, right? And so we have to teach the students tell 3. So that was a really important word that you said. That is a big part of how we teach these tools.
Yeah, I mean, huge, right? And, I'm thinking back now to when I was a 5th grade classroom teacher, students had iPads, and it was always, right, like, explain how to do this without touching their iPad because it's such a different type of skill, right? You could lean over and just go bop, bop, bop on the screen of your neighbor at your table, and then it's done. And you still know what to do, but they don't know how you got there, right? It's really hard sometimes to explain something without, just instinctively going to touch someone else's screen. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that too. A quick note from the presenter of today's episode, JotForm. JotForm lets you build a form in minutes. Student survey forms, homework submission forms, online quizzes, and so much more. You can start from scratch, or if you want to get a head start, check out their collection of free form templates designed with teachers, schools, and districts in mind. Learn more about JotForm and how educational institutions can get a 30% discount on JotForm Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. jotform.com/enterprise/education. So when we think about collaboration, do you have any favorite tools that foster collaboration in the classroom?
So again, elementary is a little bit of a different breed. Yeah. So it has to be easy. It has to be, something that the kids can do successfully. So we've used a bunch of different things. One of the things that we use is Canva. We love the collaborative whiteboard feature on there. So the students can just put up stickies of all their different ideas, especially when we're doing a classroom project. Everyone wants to get their word out there. The kids all raise their hand, and you can't get to everybody.
Right, yeah.
You certainly can on a collaborative whiteboard. Mm-hmm. So, we've used Canva a lot. One of the other ones that we use a lot is Book Creator. Mm-hmm. So we love Book Creator because there is this wonderful element of collaboration already in it. But I love that you can link, books together. So if a student is absent, if, they can work on, let's say, one part of it, I can work on another part of it, and then we can link those projects together into one project very simply, very easily for elementary students. Yeah. And it does involve the voice and the video and the audio and the drawing. And there's just so many multimodal tools that an elementary student can use in those platforms that just makes it much easier for them. And then, of course, we do use Seesaw a lot. Seesaw is our learning management system. So we also use Seesaw for a lot of collaboration tools as well.
Yeah. And there's so many layers there, right? When we talk about this, today with more of the elementary, mindset for a middle school or high school teacher, there's so much there that they might look to say, like, what happened in an elementary classroom before the student, got to me? If they're using something like Seesaw, like you mentioned, right? Do they have practice commenting already? Or do they have, practice navigating a shared digital space, right? And then we're building upon those skills, right? As we're moving through, from a elementary to a middle to a high school environment. But, of course, these things sound great for someone who maybe, hasn't done them before. What are some things that they should anticipate? What are some things that make collaboration between students a bit challenging at times?
So, and again, you're 100% correct. And elementary school is its own little breed. And one of the things that it is good about is rules and procedures. Rules and procedures. There has to be, there has to be a rule and procedure, right? So they love to collaborate. They love to hear each other's, but we also give them those parameters, right? So we say things like, your expectation is, right? You have to comment on at least 2 people's, right? Or you have to read at least 2 other people's and 2 other, people's responses, and then be able to give some sort of feedback back, right, to that person. And if you don't want to write it, that's fine. In elementary school, we do allow them that think, pair, share, read it,
yeah,
about it, and then talk about it, right? Because again, if you're talking a first grade, and I know people might be listening and say, well, for first grade, they're going to read it. A lot of these tools have the read aloud function in them.
Yeah.
So the kids can listen to it and then listen to it themselves, kind of take that in, process it, and then be able to speak to one of their friends. And that is, like you said before, the thinking process, that's more, it's definitely more thinking involved, right? As opposed to just writing something that doesn't make any sense, right? The other thing is, again, going back to, there has to be a confidence with the tool. Otherwise, the students get distracted on the exploration of the tool. What can this do? Where can what button can I press? So all of that has to be already ironed out, right? It's like when a kid gets a new toy, right? They want to push every button, they want to play with it, they want to do all that stuff. But then eventually it's like, okay, I'm using this for this purpose. And in the elementary school, I think that is where a lot of teachers forget that these are young children and they do want to play and they want to explore.
Right.
And you have to get that out. They have to be able to do that, right? And then they will be able to use the tool effectively for the task that you're asking them to do.
Yeah. And I think back to, as you're describing that, even devices in my classroom as an upper elementary school teacher, so one of the recommendations we were introducing a new math curriculum was like, dump all the manipulatives at the beginning of the unit on the table and let the kids just play for like 10 minutes, like get it out of their system, let them see what everything does so that tomorrow, in the next lesson, when you introduce something and you bring out those manipulatives, like they're in the zone. Right? They now know what this is. They've seen this before. The novelty right of it, right? Isn't a distraction. Yeah.
It's 100. Listen, it's not anything. And it doesn't matter if you're kindergarten or fifth grade. Right. If you get fifth grade or something brand new, all of a sudden you're going to see that little kindergartner spirit come right out of them and be like, I want to try it. Right. So they have to have all of that ironed out. They have to have the time to really understand, play, and get it, and then be able to use it for that purpose, right? And I think that's where a lot of people forget that. And they're kids. They're kids. They're going to be. I mean, listen, I get a new tech toy and I want to play.
Right,
with
I'm pressing all the buttons. Right. Yeah, for sure. So for a teacher who's listening and wants to bring more collaborative projects to their class, what would you recommend?
So as a teacher, my first thing is looking to other people. Now, again, I was a third grade teacher for 22 years. I was in a classroom for teaching third grade for 22 years inside that door. And a lot of times it feels like a silo. You don't really have a lot of time to collaborate and talk to other people. Social media can be a really powerful thing. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get overwhelmed by it. You don't have to fall in the rabbit hole. But there is a tremendous amount of inspiration if you find the right thing. Go pick a social media platform, whatever it might be, and start looking for whatever grade you teach or whatever subject you teach, right? And start looking at, because teachers by nature are sharers, right? We love to share what we do, right? It's not, we're proud of it. We want to do it. So get on. So one of the first things I did was I jumped in. I was on Facebook. I know I'm aging myself, but Facebook. And, looking at like third grade groups, right? And start getting that inspiration from people. And don't be afraid to duplicate. I don't want to use copy because that's what a lot of people, don't be afraid to duplicate someone's project, right? Because it may be a wonderful idea, but you may have to tweak it, right? What works in a first grade classroom is going to work very differently in a fourth grade classroom and vice versa. But there's a lot of inspiration that can be found in these platforms, and it makes you feel like, okay, I can do this. I can do this, right? And then the second part is once you get the I can do this, again, I really am a big believer in using the students to help you. Get a project assistant, right? Tell one of your kids you're going to be the project assistant, and you can rotate that role as many times as you want, right? You're going to be the project assistant, and you're going to help me with this project. And when you're in your small group or wherever your project may be, that's that person that's going to be able to help you, right? But you got to start small. Don't look at these big projects and be like, oh, these girls. You got to start small, use some inspiration, and then get the help. Get a project assistant get another teacher bestie. We all have our teacher besties.
Yeah.
Grab a teacher bestie, be like, here, I want to try this. What do you think? And just brainstorm it together. You can't be afraid to try it. Kids are okay if you fail. It teaches them that it's okay, right? You're not perfect. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. And then how can we make this better? And listen to the kids. Ask them, what can we do to make this better? What part did you like? What part didn't you like? What would you have done differently? They have wonderful ideas, even kindergarten. They have amazing ideas. Just ask them.
Right. And they're happy to give you feedback in many instances too.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Honestly,
right.
Very honest.
Which is always a helpful, right, to kind of hear their perspective of, what it felt like, right, to be part of that project, and then use that maybe not for the whole next school year, but even to inform like what you do in the next unit of study, right? So plenty of good info there. So Kim, this has been so informative, really actionable for listeners, lots of great strategies and tips. And of course, we're going to link out to where people can connect with you. But for anyone who's like on the move, making a mental bookmark, doesn't have the links right in front of them, can you tell us, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
So one of the best places that you can find me is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm also very active on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, active on there as well. I am always very busy. As I said, I have 500 students. So I'm not an everyday poster, but I do post when I see things. I'm good at communicating with people. So if you send me a message, we will talk and we will share and we'll do lots of different ideas together. I love to bounce ideas off people. I have email. I have a small website that I'm still working on, but I'll definitely link that for you. So there's lots of ways that you can communicate with me, and I would love to hear from anyone who needs help, because we've all been there.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I will make sure to link out and share all of that with everyone who is listening today. So Kim, thank you again so much for all of your great insights and tips today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you asking me, and I had a great time.
It was so much fun chatting with Kim today. So let's make this EdTech easy with a few key points from the episode. School-wide projects build a sense of community across classrooms and grade levels. Collaborative projects give students an audience beyond their classroom, including families and visitors. Clear parameters help young students stay focused and understand expectations during collaborative work. Student experts and peer helpers strengthen independence and reduce over-reliance on the teacher. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from today's episode by heading to easyedtechpodcast.com, including all of the ways to connect with Kim Marie Kefalas and Jotform. A big thank you to Jotform, the presenter of today's episode and the special series. If you want to watch the video version of this episode, you can find it exclusively on Jotform's YouTube network. Just head to YouTube and type Jotform in the search bar. To learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise, head to jotform.com/enterprise/education. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or another favorite app, maybe even YouTube, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button. When you follow along with the podcast, each new episode will download for you automatically so you don't miss a thing. It's totally free to follow or subscribe. It just helps you get those notifications so you know when a new episode is available. And if you have a moment and are feeling extra helpful today, please leave a rating or review for the podcast. It helps other educators find this podcast when they're searching for topics like EdTech in their podcast app. Have a great week and check back on Tuesday morning for another new episode of the Easy EdTech Podcast.